It always begins the same way. An audience of millions, lights blinding, cameras rolling, and the roar of an arena teeming with anticipation. WrestleMania, the so-called showcase of the immortals, demands perfection. Yet in its pursuit of glory, it constantly stumbles into absurdity. And perhaps that's what makes it eternal. Because behind the fireworks and muscle-bound drama lies a chaotic symphony of missteps, bloopers, and the kind of spontaneous humor no writer could ever plan. WrestleMania isn't just sport, it's high-stakes theater laced with unintended comedy, where the only guarantee is that something ridiculous will happen when you least expect it. The grandeur of the show almost guarantees someone will fail spectacularly. Take the entrances, for example. Months of preparation, hours of rehearsal, and yet, the infamous moment Rey Mysterio's lift jammed at WrestleMania 26 proved that even superheroes can suffer a delay. For over 30 seconds, the audience waited, baffled, while backstage chaos brewed. Then, like an afterthought, Rey emerged. No explosion, no timing, just awkwardness, cloaked in spandex. Or remember Vince McMahon confusing Austin Theory's theme with Stone Cold Steve Austin's at WrestleMania 38? The camera caught it all. His whiplash of facial expressions becoming an accidental masterclass in live comedy. But the entrances are only the beginning. Inside the ring, where gravity and adrenaline wage war, comedy thrives in the most punishing places. Wrestlers miss cues, they trip over ropes, referees get knocked out in the most exaggerated pratfalls ever seen. Moves that were meant to shock instead cause hysterics. Take Charles Robinson, for instance, tumbling down the ramp like a stuntman from a forgotten soap opera. It was supposed to be dramatic. Instead, it turned into a meme. Or when Kevin Owens kicked out at one using only one finger. The crowd roared, not in suspense but in disbelief, as comedy and brilliance collided under the lights. Then come the promos, the sacred time before or after matches where wrestlers speak their truth, sell the story, and sometimes absolutely unravel live on mic. And it's always golden. Who could forget Hulk Hogan calling the Superdome the Silver Dome? An entire crowd cringed in unison. Or The Rock, trying to explain legal proceedings in his promo. If The Rock were the jury, he'd be a hung jury. The crowd naturally exploded. Wrestlers, for all their physique and training, are also impromptu comedians, often unintentionally. Their trash talk veers into surrealism. Your face looks like my nuts, except you got a hairier bush. What kind of Shakespearean insult is that? Sometimes, the chaos spills outside the ring into strange backstage segments that feel pulled from an alternate dimension. Pete Rose, dressed as a chicken, gets tombstoned by Kane. Brutus, the barber beefcake, rides a golf cart with an unwilling passenger. There was the time Steve Austin was supposed to beat up Donald Trump on behalf of Grandpa. You see, when you invite celebrities and part-time wrestlers into a world governed by stunts and egos, comedy is inevitable. They forget lines, mess up cues, and deliver botched slaps that sound like someone dropped a slice of bologna on the floor. And yet, even when the matches end, the humor persists. Celebrations go wrong. Post-match speeches spiral. Someone always grabs the wrong mic or delivers the wrong line. There's always a laugh waiting after the final bell. Like when Booker T shouted, "To hell with her," in the middle of a backstage segment, completely out of context. Or when someone's grand declaration is interrupted by an off-camera sneeze, fart, or rogue fan sign that makes the entire segment collapse into laughter. But what makes this comedic layer of WrestleMania so irresistible? Why do fans adore these moments as much as the title wins and dramatic betrayals? Perhaps because it reveals the humanity beneath the pageantry. These are not gods, they are flawed performers in a grand circus. And sometimes it's the flaws that make them unforgettable. When Triple H forgets a line, or when a finisher misses by a mile and everyone pretends not to notice, it's no longer theater, it's real. Hilariously, painfully, delightfully real. And that's what keeps us watching. Not just for the 5-star matches or the Hollywood-scale entrances, but for the misfires, the mic flubs, the backstage brawls that feel like poorly scripted sitcoms. These moments remind us that even in the world of larger-than-life characters, there's always space for the beautifully absurd. Because where else would you see a 300-pound man try to suplex a mascot into a dumpster and fail? But as much as WrestleMania invites us to laugh at the chaos, it hides something else beneath its surface, a darker truth, just out of reach. Why do certain themes, certain voices keep reappearing in these accidental moments? Why do some bloopers seem too perfect, too consistent, to be unplanned? And what exactly is really being broadcast in those brief moments when the cameras glitch and the feed stutters? It was always supposed to be just entertainment, a dance between violence and pageantry. But as the laughter faded and Daniel Archer's obsession grew, WrestleMania started to look less like a celebration and more like a smokescreen. Hidden under layers of spectacle, parody, and carefully curated chaos, Daniel discovered what he believed was a pattern, a recurring signal buried within the most comical WrestleMania moments. The first time he noticed it was during a blooper compilation. A microphone dropped during a backstage segment with The Rock in 2001, producing what sounded like harmless interference. But slowed down and filtered, it wasn't just static, it was a whisper, a message. Most would scoff, a conspiracy theory fed by too many sleepless nights and grainy VHS tapes. But Daniel, methodical and increasingly unhinged, tracked dozens of similar anomalies. In 1999, a misfired pyrotechnic cue seemed to follow the same rhythm as that first whisper. In 2014, Bray Wyatt's pre-match promo suddenly glitched on the WWE Network. Split-second frames flashed images of a room no one could identify, a child's room, with the same toys from the abandoned farmhouse. And that same whispering voice, digitally buried beneath the thunderous entrance music, said again, "You were never supposed to remember." Daniel started isolating audio channels, layering them like a forensic technician unspooling a crime scene. The deeper he went, the more he realized that these bloopers weren't random. They formed a timeline. Each year, the errors grew more theatrical, more absurd, as if trying to draw attention away from something else. In 2007, Vince McMahon stumbled during his walk to the ring. The crowd laughed. But in the background of the broadcast feed, the satellite transmission blinked, only for 0.3 seconds, and in that sliver of corrupted data was a waveform that matched the voice print of the farmhouse radio. And then came the dream. At first, Daniel dismissed it, just sleep-deprived imagination, but it kept returning. A darkened WrestleMania stage, empty, the crowd gone, every seat filled with mannequins, and in the center of the ring, a child, not a performer, not a fan, just standing there, holding an old tape recorder. "This is your WrestleMania now," the child said. "Everyone's watching, but no one sees." He woke drenched in sweat, every surface in his apartment coated with tiny specks of what looked like iron filings. His radio scanner had turned on by itself and was locked to a frequency Daniel had never set, 199.99 megahertz. It was broadcasting only one thing, the sound of an arena, cheering, chants, the sound of WrestleMania, but no actual match, just looping excitement. When he cut the signal manually, a voice different from the child's cut through with a low hum. "You've tuned in too far, Daniel. Turn back." Of course, Daniel didn't. He cross-referenced every match known for its comedic flubs and dug into the footage. The Tiny Balls chant from 2022, not started by fans, an audio loop. The exact same chant, layered identically, appeared in 2019 under a different name. Or the infamous Stunner Marathon. Every reaction from Steve Austin's victims seemed too synchronized, too robotic, as if triggered, not acted. He even suspected that some matches were only pretending to fail. He posited that perhaps the failures were rehearsed perfectly to conceal the real signal, to keep the audience fixated on the fall, not the frequency. So he tested it. During a live stream of WrestleMania reruns, he injected white noise and reversed the pitch on a known blooper segment. The crowd began chanting something unrecognizable, an audio hallucination perhaps, but Daniel heard it clearly. "Wake them, wake them, wake them." His heart pounded. It wasn't just WrestleMania, it was through WrestleMania. Something was using the grandest stage of them all, not just to entertain, but to transmit, to encode, maybe even to control. What better delivery method for a global signal than the one night when millions watched with undivided attention, when their minds were saturated with noise and open to suggestion? WrestleMania wasn't the distraction, it was the vessel. On a whim, or perhaps a compulsion, Daniel returned to the farmhouse. This time, he brought a portable spectrum analyzer. What he found shattered his remaining skepticism. The entire house was a silent antenna, every surface coated with a faint magnetic residue. And in the attic, sealed beneath the floorboards, was a decaying television set tuned permanently to a channel that didn't exist. No static, no image, just silence. Until 2:13 a.m., when the screen lit up. The child's room, again, the toys, the radio. But now, Daniel saw something else, a television in the corner showing WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant, a moment seared into wrestling history. Except, the background was different. The audience wasn't human. They were mannequins, identical to the ones in his dream. And then the child, now standing directly in front of the camera, mouthed something without sound. Daniel paused the screen. He enhanced the frame. He tried to read the lips, but his computer crashed before he could finish. And when he rebooted, every WrestleMania file he had ever stored was gone, replaced by a single folder labeled The Final Bell. Within the folder was a single video, WrestleMania, future dated for the coming year, a show that hadn't happened yet. The match card was blank, the crowd was missing. But the main event was clear, Daniel Archer versus the Forgotten Signal, scheduled for exactly 2:13 a.m., and then his lights cut out. So he ran, he left the farmhouse, he left the state, but he couldn't leave it. The radio interference followed. The laughter on TV always sounded like it had an extra voice. His dreams became countdowns, and worst of all, he started to forget. Names, events, dates, as if someone was rewriting his memory from the inside out. Because here's the thing. What if the humor at WrestleMania is not a side effect, but a mechanism? What if laughter is the key to lowering resistance, to making us vulnerable? What if we've been willingly tuning in to something we were never meant to hear, disguised perfectly as entertainment? And what if WrestleMania has never been for us? They say the crowd is what makes WrestleMania immortal. The thunderous chants, the waves of cheers and jeers, the pure, unfiltered energy of thousands compressed into a single arena. But as Daniel Archer sat alone in a motel off Highway 54, staring into the blank reflection of a television screen that hadn't worked in days, he realized something that twisted his stomach in ways no blooper reel ever had. He could no longer hear the crowd. He rewatched classic matches, the iconic entrances, the show-stopping finishers, but in every recording, the audience had gone mute. There was still music, commentary, even ring noise, but the fans were missing, replaced with a soft, rhythmic hiss. He tried other televisions, other devices, YouTube, DVDs, old tapes. Same result. The crowd was gone, like they had been scrubbed from history. Was it a hallucination? A breakdown? Perhaps. But Daniel was a technician, not a theorist, and his tools never lied. Something, or someone, was erasing the presence of people from the recordings, replacing them with silence, replacing them with something else, something that pulsed in binary, something that whispered when slowed and looped, "This is the countdown, this is the end." And then it arrived, the WrestleMania he wasn't supposed to see. Dated only days into the future, the event streamed to Daniel's computer without prompt. He hadn't clicked anything, no app was open, it simply started. The file was titled WrestleMania The Final Bell and the card was blank, except for one match, his name, versus the Signal. A chill settled in his bones as the camera faded in on an empty stadium. No fans, no ring crew, no lighting technicians, just Daniel, already in the ring alone. The screen flickered, a low hum began. It sounded like electricity dragging a knife across metal. And then, the crowd appeared, mannequins, each seat filled with a blank plastic face, unmoving, but their eyes, black unreflective sockets, seemed locked on him, watching, judging, waiting. Across the ramp, the curtain moved, slowly, and what stepped through wasn't human. It looked like a child, but its body flickered, glitched. Clothed in outdated wrestling merch from every era, it wore an Ultimate Warrior mask, but underneath was the warped outline of a face constantly shifting. Stone Cold, The Rock, Roman Reigns, Vince McMahon, a dozen others. It was all of them. It was none. This was the Signal. No music played, no pyro exploded. The mannequin crowd made no sound. The figure entered the ring and pointed at Daniel. And from everywhere, every speaker, every wall, every screen, the voice returned. Main event, no time limit, winner rewrites history. Daniel tried to move, but his limbs didn't respond like they should. His body moved with the stiffness of a marionette, yanked by unseen strings. The match began, not with a bell, but with a glitch. The screen fractured into horizontal lines, and when it reformed, Daniel was on the mat, blood in his mouth. The child stood over him, not smiling, not gloating, just observing. Like this was part of the ritual. Move by move, Daniel was dismantled, not physically, but cognitively. Every strike from the figure stole something from him, a memory, a face, a name. His first match as a fan, his brother's laugh during the Attitude Era, the moment he cried watching Eddie Guerrero win the belt. All of it fading, pixel by pixel. He was being unmade through the very thing he had once loved. And the crowd? Still silent, still mannequins, but now their mouths were open. It wasn't a match, it was an exorcism. The ring was the altar, Daniel, the offering, and WrestleMania, it had always been the ritual, an annual global event to feed something ancient, something that required laughter, spectacle, and noise to mask its true intent. The bloopers, the flubs, the memes. They weren't accidents, they were anchors, triggers to keep minds receptive, to keep viewers docile while the signal reached deeper into their subconscious. Every botch was a breadcrumb, every promo gone wrong, a coded command, and every match a sermon. As Daniel lay in the center of the ring, the arena faded. The crowd vanished, the child dissolved. All that remained was the sound, a toe, constant, eternal. The same tone heard in every comedic WrestleMania clip, the same one no one ever noticed because they were too busy laughing. And over it, the final whisper returned. You were the last who remembered. Now we are uninterrupted. Daniel's screen went black. No footage remained, no recordings, no proof. And yet, hours later, the signal returned. WrestleMania aired as scheduled. Millions watched. They laughed at stunners. They mocked botches. They screamed for legends. They didn't notice the whispers beneath the ring music. They didn't see the pattern in the promos. They didn't question why the same joke kept showing up, year after year. Because that's the beauty of the ritual. You never realize you're part of it until it's far, far too late. So tell me, viewer, the next time you laugh at a WrestleMania blooper, the next time you hear the crowd chant something strange, the next time a promo feels too chaotic, are you sure it's just comedy? Or are you hearing the signal too? Let us know what you heard in the comments below.